Okay, so as far as the playoff goes, people, we are here with a new Ross Dellinger article. It is a Ross bomb, a Dell bomb. I don't think Dellinger bomb. That's just too much. I think we've got to go Ross bomb. It's got to be a Ross bomb. A Ross bomb. Ross bomb says within the SEC and Big Ten, momentum is building to further expand the playoff to 14 or 16 teams. All right. Some people may hate it. I just accepted it. We're about to talk about the auto bids that are coming for the SEC and Big Ten. Some people hate it. I've just accepted it. And when it comes along with 2 auto bids for the Big 12 and the ACC, I really just shrug my shoulders and say, hey, it could be worse. It could be worse. You may disagree with my take on that, and I will explain why fully I feel that way, but that is how I feel. But Dellinger says as many as, so momentum is building to further expand the playoff to 14 or 16 teams. Multiple qualifiers per league, as many as 4 for each, the SEC and Big Ten. And the SEC and Big Ten are going to finalize a scheduling arrangement together that may fetch millions in additional revenue from TV partners. Now, that part kind of sucks. That's the part, if you've been listening for a while, you know that I probably like least out of this entire arrangement and what's being discussed here. This is where it's like the SEC and Big Ten basically are just forming one monopoly to cut everybody out. Like, okay, we'll let you come hang out at the playoff with your 2 cutesy little bids, but if you want to earn any kind of at-large spot or general respect by playing us in a non-conference game, good luck with that. We're going to do a scheduling agreement between each other. Included in all of this article is that the SEC is going to then go to 9 conference games. So they'll have an extra conference game and scheduling agreement with the Big Ten. So you're talking about there's a couple games out of the way that you can't schedule them for. Some of them do have rivalries, like within the ACC, like you've got South Carolina, Clemson, Florida State, Florida. I mean, you're talking about, and then they've got to squeeze in, their local FCS opponent. So that's an entire schedule or maybe 1 game open. You're just not going to have much of a chance to play them. And then they're going to punish you for your strength of schedule if you're ever daring to try and contend for an at-large bid. That's a way to kind of lock everybody out. I dislike that more so than what seems to actually be happening with the playoff here. But Ross says the playoff format change would clear the way for SEC admins to finally make the long-discussed move to play 9 regular season conference games and would trigger perhaps all 4 leagues to overhaul their conference championship weekend. Yes, remember that part of this is that if you're going to have all these auto bids, you would change the conference championship game because it won't matter if you have 4, even if you have 2 auto bids of the Big 12. What's the point of playing a conference championship game if you know both teams are going to the playoff? I guess there's some you can say that you're the conference champ, but it really is not going to gain you enough to be a big deal. So you'd have team number 1, first place team, you're automatically in, and say teams 2 and 3 then play in the championship game or whatever you want to call it on that final weekend. That's what the game would be. There's still high stakes. It satisfies TV wanting that game. It satisfies money for the conference. That's probably coming, and that's been foreshadowed for a very long time. Now, as far as the auto bids, the 14 or 16 team model would grant 4 auto qualifiers, each to the SEC and Big Ten, 2 each to the ACC and Big 12, 1 to the highest ranked group of 5 champions. So the group of 5 will keep their spot. And it includes 1 or 3 at-large spots. So that will depend on whether it goes to 14 or 16. One of those intended for Notre Dame if it finishes ranked inside the top 14. Okay. So Notre Dame, small footnote here, is a winner because if there aren't going, well, I guess we'll see how all the format goes with the buys. But part of the issue with Notre Dame was like, oh, are you going to join the Big Ten or whatever conference so that you can get one of these automatic buys in the current format of the college football playoff? Now it looks like if Notre Dame's good enough, could just be one of the top 4, which I imagine is what would happen with the buys or 2, whatever it might be. Notre Dame basically doesn't lose out here. Notre Dame picks up a little bit of a win here. They made it to the national championship game while dealing with this current situation and setup, which did not allow them to have a bye. Okay, so there is that. Pause here for my take on the bye situation. If your stance is, hey, it sucks that college football is in a place where we're going to reward the freaking Big Ten and SEC with 4 automatic bids into the playoff every single year. They don't need that. That is something that reeks of just like not having to earn it. Like, why not just go every single year and earn it? And in light of what we saw this year with the SEC, it makes more sense to bring up, because even if you were inclined to be like, well, I mean, whatever, every year they would probably get 4 anyway because they're just that good and the scales are tilted in their favor enough. Well, the SEC this year got 3 in. Now, if it were a 14-team field, would Bama have been in, or Ole Miss, or maybe South Carolina? I mean, probably, possibly. But it was at least a discussion as to whether or not they deserved 4 teams this year. And that was just the first year of expanding the playoff to even 12. So, we'll see. Has the landscape changed enough in an NIL portal world where that won't be a foregone conclusion every year? Not sure. But it bears at least a discussion of like, why do you need this? If you have all these advantages and stuff, why can't it just be get the best teams in there? You guys whined and complained about how the top 4 should just be the 4 best teams. We don't need to be handing anything away to these undeserving conferences. Well, okay, then why are we going to hand this out? Why would we give this out as a handout? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just get 4 teams in the playoff if you're going to get 4 teams in the playoff every year instead of having to hand it to you. I understand how you would have some frustration with that. And obviously I'm saying some of this derisively because it is pretty silly. It is a little bit ridiculous. But they have the leverage, and I have just come to a place of acceptance. This is where are you at in the stages of grief over what college athletics and college sports, college football has turned into. I'm just much more in a place of acceptance. I understand the deal. I still love this sport. I still want to get as much out of it as I can. And if that includes at the expense of 4 auto bids for the 2 big boys, you get 2 for the Big 12. After I just saw a season in which BYU objectively should have been at least within a razor-thin margin of getting into the playoff and got 0 national discussion about it, I'm going to say, you know what? That's not half bad. That's not half bad for the Big 12 to just be guaranteed to have 2 spots in the thing. Could be a hell of a lot worse based on the treatment that we saw BYU get this year after the season that they had. And it was vindicated with their performance in the bowl game against Colorado, not just winning, but winning as decisively as they did. So that's where I come down on it. I will not fight you. If you say, John, this is an outrage, this is ridiculous, it just at a certain point kind of ends up like, you have to pick your battles. All right. You got to pick and choose your battles. I am not married. Okay. But from what I hear about marriage, you got to pick and choose your battles sometimes, right? Like there are a lot that come at you, and at a certain point you kind of just have to accept not always going to be right. You have to take what you can get. And boy, I just said a state of mourning basically about how terrible the game of college football is, and then compared it to marriage. That was not my intention. Those of you who are happily married, okay? Not my intention. But that was the best analogy I could think of right off the top here. So this is not one that I'm going to fight tooth and nail right now, because at least it includes multiple spots for the Big 12. You will still have opportunities for Arizona State. You'll get, like this past year, could have had Arizona State and Iowa State get a crack to go do what Arizona State basically did this year. And if you're getting twice the opportunity to go do that, then fine. It would also probably include playing on the road instead of a neutral site, because you're not going to get the bye. But again, take what you can get here. And that will be another one of those things where, again, the scheduling agreement hurts, because seeding for this thing, right? You'll get two automatic bids in, but that doesn't guarantee you anything as far as seeding. And you're not going to be able to play many SEC or Big Ten teams because of this scheduling agreement they're working on to juice up your strength of schedule or reputation or whatever. So it's, it's all a little messed up. It is, but not as messed up as it possibly could be.